Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Buddha. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you loved? Not a stranger, but someone from your own family. Someone who once held your hand as a child. What if the person trying to destroy you was the same person who once called you brother? Would you run? Would you fight? Or would you forgive? Imagine this. You're sitting under a tree, meditating peacefully, breathing gently, eyes half closed. Then the earth begins to shake. A wild elephant comes charging toward you. Drunk, violent, unstoppable. And the one who said that elephant is your cousin, the boy you grew up with, the one who once laughed beside you. This is not a myth. This is history, written in the ancient Buddhist scriptures. And the cousin's name? Devadatta. Known as the Buddhist Judas. He tried to kill the Buddha. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. He failed each time. But in doing so, he revealed a powerful truth. A truth we can all learn from today. Because betrayal isn't just something from the past. It lives with us now, in families, among friends, even in spiritual communities. Have you ever held pain in your heart for years? Have you struggled to forgive someone who never said sorry? Then this story is for you. Hello, dear friends, and welcome back to Son.Mindfulness. This is a place for reflection, for inner peace, for learning how to live gently and mindfully. On this channel, we explore Buddhist stories. Simple, beautiful, and deeply human. If you find meaning in this video, please consider subscribing, turn on notifications, and share this with someone who needs it. You're always welcome here. We're grateful to walk this path with you. May you be healthy, may you be at peace, may happiness follow you, and may luck gently find you in all you do. Now, what causes someone to turn against those they love? How can jealousy poison a heart so deeply? And is there still a way back, even after the worst betrayal? In today's video, we'll dive into the true story of Devadatta, the man who tried to kill the Buddha 3 times. Stay with us to the very end, because this story may change how you see your enemies, and maybe how you see yourself. Part 1. Devadatta, from Prince to Shadow. They were born under the same palace roof, 2 boys, 2 princes, 2 paths. One would become the Buddha. The other is Shadow. Have you ever grown up in someone else's light? Someone who always seemed to shine brighter? Devadatta knew that feeling every single day. He wasn't just anyone. He was strong, bold, and charming. He could tame wild animals and outshoot any archer in the kingdom. People praised his talents, but never as much as they praised Siddhartha. Because Siddhartha wasn't just gifted, he was destined. Prophets whispered about his future, servants bowed at his feet, even kings treated him like a god before he became one. Devadatta stood there smiling, but inside, something was breaking. Do you know what it's like to be constantly compared? To be the almost, the maybe, the not quite? It wasn't always like that. They had played together as children, laughed in the gardens, chased peacocks through the palace gates. But one day, Siddhartha walked away. He left everything, the gold, the crown, the family. He went seeking something deeper. And when he returned as the Buddha, everything changed. Siddhartha now had thousands of followers. Emperors bowed to him, crowds wept just hearing his words. And Devadatta, he watched the cousin he once called a brother become a spiritual giant, and the fire inside him grew. It started small, a quiet discomfort, a bruised ego. But jealousy is not content to sit still. It grows, it mutates, until admiration becomes bitterness. Do you know someone whose love turned to envy? Have you felt it in yourself? Devadatta began to ask, why not me? He thought, I'm just as wise, just as capable. Why is he the enlightened one and not me? That question haunted him. Jealousy became his shadow, and shadows, when left unchecked, turn poisonous. Buddha warned of 3 poisons: greed, hatred, delusion. Each one subtle at first. Greed tells you you're missing something. Hatred tells you someone else has taken it. Delusion convinces you they never deserved it. Devadatta drank all 3. Not in a single gulp, but sip by sip, One compliment to Siddhartha here, one comparison there, one more praise he didn't receive, until he was no longer Devadatta, the prince. He became Devadatta, the wound, a wound that refused to heal. Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Like someone else's light was casting a shadow over your entire life? Many people live like that, quietly hurting, silently comparing. It doesn't always lead to hate, but sometimes it does. Devadatta didn't hate Buddha because of who Buddha was. He hated Buddha because of what Buddha reminded him of. Everything he wanted to be, but wasn't. Everything he believed he deserved, but couldn't have. That's the danger of the three poisons. They don't just make us suffer. They make us dangerous, not only to others, but to ourselves. So Devadatta made a decision. He would not live in anyone's shadow anymore, not even the Buddha's. And what he did next shocked the world. Have you ever been so jealous, so hurt, that you crossed a line you couldn't uncross? In the next part of this story, you'll see just how far Devadatta was willing to go. He didn't just want attention, he wanted to erase the light. Coming up next, part 2. 3 attempts to kill a saint. The jealousy wasn't just emotional, it became deadly. Part 2. 3 attempts to kill a saint. Jealousy rarely stays quiet, it whispers, then it plots, then it strikes. Devadatta had crossed the line. He no longer wanted to outshine Buddha, he wanted him gone. Have you ever hated someone so much you scared yourself? Devadatta didn't want to talk. He wanted blood. But this wasn't a bar fight. This was ancient India. No guns, no poison pills. So what do you use? An elephant. A massive wild drunk elephant. His name was Nalagiri, a war elephant. Already dangerous, already aggressive. Devadatta wanted to make him a monster. So he fed him rice wine, barrels of it, enough to drown a man. The elephant staggered, enraged, uncontrollable. Then Devadatta waited. He knew Buddha's daily routine, knew which street he walked, knew what time he passed. Imagine this. You're peacefully walking down a quiet road. The sun is soft, the morning calm. Then suddenly, the ground shakes. People scream. A monstrous elephant turns the corner. Foaming, roaring, charging, everyone runs except one man. Buddha. He stands still, eyes open, hands relaxed. How would you react? Would you run? Freeze? Cry? Buddha doesn't move, he simply radiates something. A presence, a silence, a love so strong it pierces chaos, and something miraculous happens. The elephant stops, not because of chains, not because of force, but because of peace. Nalagiri lowers his head. He kneels like a child asking for comfort. Buddha steps forward, places his hand on the elephant's trunk, whispers softly, no anger, no blame, only compassion. Even the crowd forgets to breathe. Can you imagine watching that? The most feared animal tamed by kindness. What Devadatta meant for death became a moment of awe. But Devadatta wasn't impressed. He was enraged. His plan had failed. Worse, Buddha looked even more divine. Have you ever tried to embarrass someone only to make them shine brighter? Devadatta was burning inside. So he escalated. If the elephant failed, maybe gravity wouldn't. Plan 2 was personal. No wine, no animals, just Devadatta. He watched Buddha, studied him, knew where he meditated, knew the cliffs he climbed. One morning, Devadatta climbed ahead of him to Vulture Peak. It was quiet, only the wind. He crouched behind a ledge, a massive boulder beside him, enough to crush a horse. He waited. Buddha's robes appeared below. He was walking slowly, eyes half closed, peaceful, present. Have you ever tried to hurt someone who trusted you? Devadatta pushed the boulder. It rolled, gathered speed, roared down the cliff. The earth trembled. His aim was perfect. Until the impossible happened. The boulder hit another rock, split clean in two. One half shattered beside Buddha. The other struck his foot. Blood touched the ground, just a drop, but it mattered. It was the first and only time Buddha bled. He looked at his wound, then looked up, straight at Devadatta's hiding place. Their eyes met, and Buddha didn't shout, didn't curse, didn't even flinch. He simply looked, with sadness, not for himself, but for the boy who had fallen so far. Do you know that look? When someone forgives you before you even ask? That look can break a person. But Devadatta didn't break. Not yet. He had one plan left. This time he'd use professionals. He approached King Ajatashatru, one of the most powerful rulers of the land. He offered a deal. You control the throne. I'll control the monks. Together we rule both worlds. The king, hungry for power, agreed. They hired an assassin. Not just any killer. This one had poisoned fingernails. One scratch, one touch, and death would follow in hours. No trace, no blade, no blood. Perfect crime. But Devadatta didn't trust anyone, so he hired backup killers. One team to kill Buddha, another team to kill the first team if they failed. It was a murder pyramid. Cold, ruthless, calculated. Buddha was teaching under a tree, calm, gentle. The assassin crept closer. His hands were trembling, his breath heavy. He raised his arm. One scratch, that's all it would take. But then, he looked into Buddha's eyes and something collapsed inside him. He fell to his knees. Tears poured down his face. He confessed everything. The poison, the plot, the king, Devadatta. He expected punishment, expected fury. Instead, Buddha said, "Your honesty has saved you. Go in peace. No guards, no revenge, just forgiveness." The killer became a monk that very day. The backup assassins saw it all. They too came forward. They too were forgiven. They too shaved their heads and joined the Sangha. What kind of person turns killers into monks? Can you imagine that level of power? Power that doesn't destroy, but transforms? Buddha didn't win with force. He won with presence, with truth, with a love that didn't retreat, even from murder. Devadatta's final attempt had failed, miserably. But he wasn't finished. He couldn't kill the man. So he'd try something worse. He would kill the movement. Next we enter a different battlefield, not one of elephants or blades, but of ideas, of pride, of spiritual corruption. Coming up next, Part 3, Corrupting the Dhamma, When Ego Dons a Robe. Part 3, Corrupting the Dhamma, When Ego Dons a Robe. Devadatta had failed 3 times, and each failure made Buddha more beloved, more divine, more untouchable. But ego doesn't die easily, especially when it wears robes. Devadatta knew he couldn't defeat Buddha from the outside, so he tried something more dangerous. He tried to ruin Buddhism from within. Have you ever seen someone twist something sacred for power? He came before the Sangha with confidence, with charm, with poison wrapped in holiness. He said, "I propose improvements, not small changes, radical ones. All monks should live only in forests. No more sleeping in monasteries, no more accepting meals from lay people. Only food gathered through begging. No more meat, no more soft clothes, no more comfort. Only rags, roots. Cold floors." At first it sounded holy, even noble. Who wouldn't want a simpler life? But Buddha saw deeper. He saw the trap. Devadatta wasn't purifying Buddhism. He was purifying it of everyone he couldn't control. By making the rules extreme, only the most zealous would remain. Guess who they'd follow? Not the gentle teacher, but the fiery reformer. Have you ever met someone who used discipline to mask control? Who called cruelty truth? Buddha responded calmly, "These rules are fine for those who wish to follow them, but they shall not be required." Just like that, he diffused the trap. But Devadatta wasn't done. He had already been recruiting behind the scenes, young monks, impressionable ones, monks who loved the idea of purity, who felt the original teachings had become too relaxed, too soft, too modern. Sound familiar? Devadatta told them, Buddha has lost his way. He's comfortable now, surrounded by kings and merchants. He's forgotten the forest. I will lead us back to the roots, back to the edge, and 500 monks believed him. They left Buddha, followed Devadatta into the forest. Can you imagine how Buddha felt, watching his own disciples walk away? Not because of hatred, but because they thought they were doing the right thing. Spiritual corruption rarely looks like evil. It often looks like righteousness. That's why it's so dangerous. Devadatta set up his own monastic order, his own rules, his own truth. At first, the 500 monks were inspired. Devadatta was charismatic, disciplined, demanding, but something was missing. Compassion, joy, freedom. Slowly, his teachings became punishments, his wisdom became threats, his rules became chains. Have you ever followed a leader you thought was wise until they turned cold? It didn't take long. The monks began to see through the surface. They missed Buddha's warmth, his patience, his ability to listen. They realized something Devadatta could never offer: love. So one by one, they returned, humbled, ashamed, afraid they'd be rejected. But Buddha did something remarkable. He welcomed each of them. No lectures, no punishment. No, "I told you so," just open arms. Have you ever been forgiven before you even said sorry? That's what they felt. That's why they stayed. That's why they never left again. And what about Devadatta? He watched his movement collapse, watched his followers drift away, watched his ambition crumble. But still, he didn't apologize. Still, he held on. Because sometimes, ego would rather die than admit it was wrong. In today's world, we see this all the time. Leaders who start with truth but get drunk on authority. Movements that begin with love but turn into fear. Spirituality used as a weapon. People pushed to extremes, all in the name of purity. Have you ever been pressured to prove how serious your faith is? More rules, more sacrifice, more suffering. But Buddha taught something different. Balance. The middle way. Not luxury. Not torture. Just enough. Enough to stay awake. Enough to stay kind. Enough to stay free. That's what Devadatta forgot. And that's what Buddha never did. He didn't argue, didn't chase his students, didn't attack the liar. He just kept walking, kept teaching, kept living the truth, and the truth did its work. What Devadatta tried to control slipped away. What Buddha let go returned. Who do you think had more power? The man clenching his fists, or the one opening his hands? The danger of Devadatta wasn't just in violence. It was in distortion. Turning the Dhamma into a cage, using holiness as a mask for hunger. And it didn't just hurt him, it hurt the ones who followed him. Even now, thousands of years later, the lesson is clear. Watch closely when someone uses purity to gain power. Ask, does this teaching bring fear or freedom? Does this teacher control or inspire? Do they punish mistakes or forgive them? Truth doesn't scream, it stands still, it waits, and it welcomes you home. In our next part, we'll see what happens when karma finally catches up, because ego always leaves footprints. Coming up next, Part 4, Karma Returns, the Body Burns Within. Part 4, Karma Returns, the Body Burns Within. Devadatta thought he had time to lead, time to win, time to be remembered. But karma doesn't wait. One morning, his body betrayed him. Fever burned through his skin, blisters covered his arms. His legs trembled with every step. He couldn't sleep, he couldn't eat, he couldn't escape the dreams. Every night, the same visions. Elephants, boulders, blood, the very weapons he once used, now chasing him through his own mind. Have you ever been haunted by your own actions? Not by what others did to you, but by what you did to them? His breath became shallow. His skin turned gray. No doctor could explain it. No monk could soothe it. Animals avoided him. Birds fled when he walked past. Dogs growled without cause. Even the trees leaned away from his path. It was as if nature itself rejected him. Do you believe energy can cling to a person? Can hate make you physically sick? Can anger become disease? For Devadatta, it wasn't a question. It was reality. He began to shake uncontrollably. His bones ached with every movement. He cried out in sleep. He begged for silence in his waking hours. No peace, only echoes of betrayal. The same betrayal he created. Eventually he couldn't walk. He lay on the ground, shivering, eyes empty, hope gone. And then something changed. The poison in his heart began to break. In his final hours, Devadatta whispered one name. Buddha. Not with rage. Not with envy, but with surrender. He sent word, told the disciples, I want to see him. I want to bow. I want to take refuge. Have you ever waited too long to apologize? Have you ever wondered if forgiveness would still be there? Buddha heard the message. He didn't hesitate. He walked toward the man who tried to kill him. 3 times, not with weapons in hand, but with compassion. He entered the room. Devadatta tried to rise, but he couldn't lift his body, only his hands. Shaking, he brought them together. "I take refuge," he said. Tears streamed down his face. Buddha knelt beside him, placed his hand on his cousin's forehead. "Your recognition of truth creates merit. You are not completely lost." In that moment, something shifted, not outside, but inside. A lifetime of bitterness cracked, and something sacred slipped through. Devadatta died with the Buddha's hand still on him. But the story didn't end there. The ancient texts say the earth opened. Thunder roared, flames rose from the ground. It wasn't punishment, it was reflection, an echo of the storm within. Devadatta's body vanished, but not his final act, because that act mattered. It softened his path, it bent his karma. He had walked the road of jealousy, he had drunk every poison, but in his last breath he chose truth. And that made all the difference. Do you believe one final act can change your fate? That even the darkest life can find light at the end? Buddha didn't celebrate, he didn't smile, he wept, not from anger, but from memory. He remembered the little boy with the bow and arrow, the cousin who once laughed beside him, before the poisons, before the pride, before the fall. He told the monks later, "Devadatta was my teacher. He taught me patience through pain, compassion through betrayal, forgiveness through the unforgivable." Even in hatred, Devadatta gave Buddha a gift. He became the fire that tempered the gold. Can you look at your enemy and say, "You made me better"? Can you look at your suffering and see your shaping? Devadatta's life was a tragedy, but his end was not without redemption. Not because he was perfect, but because he was honest. Even if only once. And sometimes that's enough. As we leave this part of the story, take a moment. Who have you harmed with pride? Who still waits for your apology? Are you Devadatta to someone, or has someone been Devadatta to you? What would it take to begin healing? The next chapter of this journey brings the answers, the lessons, the reflections, the truths we carry into our own lives. Coming up next, Part 5, Life Lessons from a Family Traitor. Part 5, Life Lessons from a Family Traitor. Let's take a breath. You've walked with Devadatta from boyhood to betrayal. You've seen his envy, his plans, his fall, and maybe his final spark of redemption. Now comes the time to ask, what does this story mean for us? And how can we live differently because of it? Let's start with the first truth. Toxic people are not born, they are made. Devadatta was not born evil. He was born hurting. He was born comparing. He wanted love. He wanted recognition. And somewhere along the way he believed he couldn't get it. Have you ever known someone like that? Someone who acted out because they didn't feel seen? Maybe that someone was even you. The second truth. Fighting fire with fire only spreads the flames. Buddha had every right to be angry, to punish, to exile, to fight. But he didn't. He stood still. He met hatred with calm. He answered violence with compassion. What happened? The hatred burned itself out. Devadatta collapsed under the weight of his own karma. Have you ever made a situation worse by reacting too fast? Have you ever wondered what would have happened if you'd stayed silent? Third, your enemy may become your greatest teacher. Think about it. Devadatta tested Buddha more than any other. He tested his patience, his forgiveness, his equanimity, and in doing so, Devadatta refined the Buddha's teachings. Can you think of someone who challenged you deeply? Someone who forced you to grow? What if they were your spiritual teacher in disguise? Fourth, redemption is always possible, even in the last breath. Devadatta destroyed relationships, split a community, tried to kill a saint, but in the final moment he bowed. He whispered 3 words, "I take refuge," and that changed everything. It didn't erase his past, but it shifted his future. Have you ever held back an apology because it felt too late? It's not too late. It never is. Fifth, you cannot control others, but you can control how you respond. Buddha couldn't stop Devadatta's betrayal. He couldn't stop the boulder or the elephant, but he could control one thing: his heart, his mind, his reaction. And through that, he changed the outcome. So ask yourself, when betrayal comes, who will you become? Will you be Devadatta, Or will you be the Buddha? These 5 truths are not just philosophy. They are real, they are personal, and they are yours to live. Now pause for a moment. Picture Devadatta as a child, running barefoot through the palace garden, laughing, innocent, before the pain, before the envy, before the fall. Can you see the same in someone who hurt you? Can you imagine the broken child inside their anger, their fear, their cruelty? It doesn't excuse the harm, but it opens the door to understanding, and understanding is the first step toward peace. So who is your Devadatta? Who triggered your worst self? Who tested your patience, your values, your calm? And more importantly, how will you respond? Will you fight back, or will you forgive? Will you burn with them, or rise above? Will you choose the path of freedom? The choice is always yours, and the path is always open, even now, especially now. If this story moved you, even a little, pause and give thanks. You just received a gift, not just a teaching, but a mirror. A mirror into your own relationships, your reactions, your hopes, and your healing. You are not reading this by accident. You are here because your heart is ready to love deeper, forgive wider, live freer. So go into your world and carry this with you. The patience of Buddha, the lesson of Devadatta, the stillness that transforms storms. Let the next time someone hurts you become your test. Let the next time someone betrays you become your training. Choose peace, not because they deserve it, but because you do. Because peace is your birthright, and revenge is a prison. Now, if this journey has helped you, even in a small way, let us say thank you. From the heart, thank you for watching. Thank you for reading. Thank you for reflecting. This is not just our story. It's yours. We invite you to keep walking with us. To subscribe to this channel, Son.Mindfulness, to share your story in the comments. Who is your Devadatta? What have they taught you? And how have you grown? Your words might be the light someone else needs. Let this community be a place of healing, of wisdom, of stillness. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. It helps us reach more hearts like yours. And remember, you are always welcome here. May you be healthy, may you be peaceful, may you be joyful, may you always be lucky in love, in life, and in letting go. See you in the next teaching. Until then, stay wise, stay free, stay kind. Thank you.